wanna see your face. I wanna know your heart. I wanna walk with you every day of my life, God.
Hi, welcome to Devos with Debbie Day 4. And today we're going to be just looking at one book of the Bible. We're going to be looking at 1 Corinthians, chapter 1, and a little bit into chapter 2. But this really was powerful for me. In 1 Corinthians 1, he talks about divisions of the church and also gratitude for the support that he's getting from the church and the way that they are growing. But what I really want to focus on is when Paul talks about the cross. And first off, it just got me thinking about the symbol of Christianity being the cross. Wow, because it is essentially a representation of a killing device. You know, what people used to kill people. It's a very bloody, almost totally morbid symbol to have as a symbol for your faith. And I don't know, this is something I need to look up, but out of curiosity, I'm wondering when the cross started being used as a symbol, to identify Christians. Because even in the early church, Paul's referring to the cross so much, transforming what it was viewed as, But I feel like the moment Jesus went up on that cross, it totally transformed what the cross could be. Because it's where man's total insufficiency meets God's grace and his power to be able to rise from the dead, to, along with his sacrifice, God's sacrifice, sorry for traffic, yeah, so it's such an interesting symbol. But what Paul is talking about here, when it comes to the cross, he says that the cross is folly to those who are dying, or a stumbling block, foolishness. And then it says, to those who are being saved by its power, it is power of God, and the wisdom of God. And I don't really live in a place, and I've never have lived in a place where I feel like I've been persecuted. There have been small moments where I'm like, that's because I'm a Christian. Very small moments, and very few. But I can imagine the early church right here in this context, and the church around the world right now that is being persecuted, understands that to put a cross on, to identify yourself with Jesus in that way, marks you as foolish and puts a target on your back. And it kind of is foolish to put on something that's going to get you killed, right? Or to align yourself with something that's going to get you killed. In the world's eye, yeah, practically speaking. But to believers, to pick up your cross daily and follow Jesus, is not foolish. It looks foolish because you have that target on you now. And it's hard. It's not fun all the time. It means sacrifice, and it means giving up things that you love or things that your dreams. But it's actually wisdom. And more so, it's so that we can see the power of God, you know? And this is what, man, this is what Paul says. Oops, sorry. He says in verse 27 of chapter 1, but God chose what is foolish in the world to shame the wise. God chose what is weak in the world to shame the strong. God chose what is low and despised in the world, even things that are not, to bring to nothing things that are, so that no human being might boast in the presence of God. Wow. And later he talks about how, like, even in his preaching of the gospel, you know, it wasn't so that people would think he has eloquent words or he's a great person or they're following Paul. But his desire always was so that they would see the Holy Spirit in him and the power in him, so that faith of people listening to Paul would never finish and rest on Paul, but would finish and rest on Christ and the power that Christ has. But it is interesting how God just does the opposite of everything we would expect. You know, like, he takes the foolish things to shame the wise and the weak to shame the strong. Like, how many stories in the Bible are about God choosing weak and empowering them? You know, you have the story in, I think it's First Kings, where it's just a few, like, Elisha or Elijah, welcome to my life, and references, and his servants, like, we're surrounded by people, and, like, he says, no, there's more with us than are with him. Like, God opened their eyes, or opened my servant's eyes, and he sees, like, this host of angels, like, but it was just two people, lowly people. Then you have, like, Jesus coming into the world as a baby. You even have what the world defines as, like, weak, you know, a woman. Time and time again, God uses women in powerful ways. You have Esther, you have Rahab. You know, it's just really interesting that God takes what is weak, not so that the weak can receive the glory, but so that he can receive the glory and give the victory. Yeah, and God chose what is low and despised in the world, even the things that are not, to bring to nothing things that are, so that no human might boast in the presence of God. And really, that's God's grace again, you know, that we catch a vision for his power, and also still remain and understand our human weakness. Because once we think we are all that, we lose this dependency on God. And don't get me wrong, I am a strong, independent woman. And I do not like to depend on other people. I like to do things myself. I like to be strong and show that I could do it. But depending on God is not a weakness. It is a strength. One time I had this image of, like, crutches, and how, like, not that God is a crutch. This is complicated to describe. I wasn't going to go into this, but I guess we are. Where, like, crutches, like, when you lean into them, they propel you forward. And they're actually strengthening you, making you do something you couldn't do before. And as we lean into God, he propels us forward. And what was weak is still weak. We ourselves are still weak. But depending on God gives us that strength to do things, maybe not the way we could have done them in our own strength, but in ways that are powerful and strong. So, yeah, the cross is redeemed. The cross is a new symbol, no longer the symbol of this death, torture device. But now it's a reminder of God's power, God's grace, God's sufficiency, our weakness, our dependency on Him, meeting the two together so that we can show to the world that there is hope, that there is redemption, there is sanctification, there's righteousness in Christ. Well, I gotta go. Those are just some thoughts. Thank you for joining me, whoever would ever watch this. Okay, bye.